What's going on, Capcom fans? This is SHOYOUCAN again, back here with another video, more importantly, another discussion video. And this time we're going to talk about, of course, the game that a lot of us are waiting on, the Capcom Fighting Collection. Now, Capcom Fighting Collection, if you're living under a rock, is a collection of some Capcom fighting games during the 90s. More importantly, we're getting a bunch of Darkstalker games, getting Red Earth, Cyberbots, pretty much some games that a lot of people haven't had a chance to play. At least new Capcom fans, anyways, haven't had a chance to play. So that's really cool, and it's gonna be awesome. And I cannot wait. And it should be coming out in a couple of weeks. I forget the exact date in June, but it's coming out a couple of weeks. My brother had already pre-ordered, so it is going to be cool. But we want to talk about the game and some comments that were made from a Capcom exec, one of the Street Fighter 5 producers. So let's dive into that. But of course, as customary, I gotta say, if you enjoy Capcom content, if you enjoy Street Fighter, Mega Man, whatever the heck it may be, let's think about sticking around and joining the channel. Be a subscriber, like, share, comment, whatever it may be. Any help would be greatly appreciated. Now then, let's get back to the video. So, Capcom Fighting Collection is coming out soon. As I said before, it is a collection of nostalgic 90s Capcom fighting games. Certain games that people haven't got a chance to play, some games that haven't been modernized, brought to a modern console. So it's going to be a pretty cool collection, especially if you enjoy Capcom fighters, right? Now, with these games coming out, of course, or with Capcom releasing these games, discussion started to, come about. People started to talk about, anyways, the possibility of maybe Capcom doing something with these titles, right? Because naturally, you're thinking, well, why release this? Why release games that are, old? I mean, really old. We're talking 20 years, right? Maybe in some case 30, right? These are old titles, and Capcom is, doing really well now. It seems like every year they're exceeding their expectations and making tons of money. Their top franchises, whether it be Devil May Cry, Street Fighter, Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, are pretty much selling and doing well, right? They're keeping the company afloat and doing really well. And in fact, there was a point where Capcom pretty much released a statement saying that they were only going to focus on those franchises. Those are the only titles that they'd be focusing on because they're the only ones that make money. Bummer, because I do miss the other games like Mega Man and Strider, but it is what it is. I understand gaming has gotten expensive and you have to do and stick with what makes you the money. Now then, Capcom decided to release this collection. So naturally, people are starting to think, well, why release the collection? If you're already making money, if you're only sticking with titles that make you money, why release something that a lot of people, quite frankly, haven't heard of? Like Red Earth. And what's the point? Especially when Capcom has done these kind of things before, right? They've done these collections, and you find out there's like an ulterior motive where they're trying to really gauge fan interest and see how well these games are received, see how well they do, right? If people purchase them. As we all famously know, Capcom had done that previously with Darkstalkers Resurrection. That was a Darkstalkers collection game, and they essentially said, hey, if this game does well, we will then make future Darkstalker games, right? We will bring the franchise back. Well, spoiler alert, the collection did not do well, and Darkstalkers essentially has been dead since. So, with that being said, that has been Capcom's model, right? For the past, I guess, 10 or so years, they've kind of been doing these tests, right? The Capcom test, where they'll put something out and say, hey, we want to see how this does to kind of gauge interest. And then, depending on how it does, we'll then decide if we're going to move forward. So, with that being said, naturally, a lot of us kind of assume, maybe this is what Capcom's doing. Maybe this is another test where they're putting these games out there, seeing how they do, and if it does well, maybe they'll decide to continue one of these franchises or bring them back. And if it doesn't do well, that's the hatchet. These are dead for good, right? That's been the prevailing thought. And I myself have thought that was the case and thought that, you know what, they are definitely doing a test, right? Fighting games are back. Fighting games are doing well. Street Fighter 5 had a really bumpy start, but it's definitely rebounded well and it's doing much better. Street Fighter 4, of course, was a success. It kind of brought things back. Mortal Kombat's doing really well. Guilty Gear now is doing well. Fighting games, Tekken, fighting games are in a really, really, really good spot. So, you're kind of thinking, well, maybe this is them deciding or thinking about bringing back one of their other fighters aside from Street Fighter. Because right now it's all they have, right? A company like Capcom was known for making tons of fighting games, but now all they're known for is Street Fighter, which, sucks. I love Street Fighter, but I also love the other fighting games as well. So that was the thinking. Maybe this could mean something. Well, once again, spoiler alert, it's looking like that might not be the case. As Street Fighter V producer Matsumoto, forgot his first name, did an interview where he was talking about the title, right? He's the producer of this game. And essentially what he went ahead and said, well, at least I'll take the exact quote. It says, I generally want these titles to be played once again on current gen consoles. I also want people who may have seen them but never had the chance to play them get to this opportunity. That said, we do not think that this will necessarily increase the possibility of these series being revived. I repeat, that said, we do not think that this will necessarily increase the possibility of these series being revived. So, there you have it. Seems like that's it, right? Done and dusted. Seems like this game is not a benchmark, it is not a test from Capcom. It's essentially just them putting these titles out and just giving a chance for older players or new players to play these games, right? Definitely a bummer hearing those remarks, and definitely everyone's already assuming, well, that's that, it's just over. People are pissed, people are canceling their pre-orders, people aren't going to buy it, because a lot of people were thinking, like myself, this is the reason why they're doing this game, and thus I'm going to buy and support to increase the chance of one of these games coming back. To be perfectly honest, after reading this quote several times, I've sort of changed my viewpoint, right? At first, when I first read it, I was pretty upset. I said, oh my goodness, here we go. They're not doing it. Man, this sucks. That's just going to hurt the sales, which I still don't understand, if I'm honest. I mean, I get trying to be honest if you're Capcom, but you do know, like I said, there were some people buying this game thinking that this is just going to increase the chance of them bringing these games back. So I know it's a little shady, but why not, let that ride? Why not use that enthusiasm, that potential cash from people to make the game do well, right? And then tell them after, oh yeah, it's not gonna. But no, they were honest up front. So on one aspect, I definitely respect that, right? I definitely appreciate and like that. Instead of just having us sit there hoping and wishing, no, they were flat out upfront and honest and saying, hey, you know what? If you're thinking this is going to bring back Red Earth or Cyberbots, think again. Now, another thing too is, if you read the quote and the full quote, he's saying again, that said, we do not think this will necessarily increase the possibility of these series being revived. Now, he didn't flat out say no. They didn't flat out say, nope, these things aren't coming back, no way, it's not happening, right? He just said, essentially, doesn't mean this is a test, doesn't mean this is going to happen. And I'll just tell you, money talks. Money freaking talks, right? If this thing does well, I just don't see how Capcom can just ignore that and just say, you know what, we won't try to bring one of these things back, right? And also on a second point too, it's not even just that. If this thing does well, I don't see how Capcom doesn't do more collections, right? Because remember, there are other fighting games or other games, right? They can easily do a 3D collection, right? I mean, they can do a Street Fighter EX collection on its own, EX 1, 2, and 3. They can obviously do a collection where you have Rival Schools, Power Stone, Techromancer, Star Gladiator, right? Because Capcom had a couple of 3D fighters themselves. So they can definitely do other collections. And then there's the huge collection, which I, for the love of God, can't understand why it hasn't been done yet. But I can only assume it's because of licensing and money. And that is a versus game collection. That is Capcom including every single versus game from X-Men Children of the Atoms all the way to Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That would sell like hotcakes, right? Now, I think the success of this could maybe hopefully lead to Capcom doing other collections. Excellent. I don't know if, again, this would necessarily bring back one of the franchises in this collection, like Darkstalkers. Unfortunately, I don't know. But I I don't think it's all doom and gloom, right? I definitely do believe Mr. Matsumoto, and I definitely think that, you know, don't sit here and pray and think that, oh, these games are coming back if this does well. I think they're just being brutally honest, in which I, again, said I appreciate it. But I also wouldn't sit there and just say, nah, no way, no way, right? I think money talks, people talk. I mean, one thing's for sure. I think Capcom does seem a little better. I don't want to give them too much credit, but they do seem a little better at listening to people, listening to fans and feedback, and kind of using that. I mean, again, Street Fighter V was a hot mess, and they did a pretty decent job with repairing it. There's still some issues. The online could be better, but they did do a pretty good job of fixing it, right? Of improving it. And I mean, look, a collection like this, right? They did not have to do this, but you know, I'm glad they are. I'm glad that they're trying to, you know, remember their games, specifically their fighting games, because they seem to have forgotten about them. But yeah, they seem to be doing a better job of listening to support. So I can only hope that maybe, if people are loud enough, that something can come back. But and then when I mean by something, I mean Darkstalkers, because that's the one. Let's be honest, in this collection, that's the one that has the most potential. Cyberbots is very, very, very niche. I don't. There's no way they would do a series to bring that back. Mechas don't seem to really be that huge right now. Red Earth or Warzard is another one that's really, really weird and different. I don't know if that would work. Darkstalkers is in, right? People love creatures, they love monsters, they love night warriors, they love zombies. Um, the whole dark, aesthetic, the cool goth look, like people love that stuff, right? And not to mention you have one of the most popular and most recognizable mascots in fighting game history, or just gaming history, Morgan, right? People love Morgan. I mean, even if you don't play fighting games, you've seen this character and probably like the character. So that alone would definitely help them to kind of, you know, put Darkstalker out there, right? So, yeah, those were the remarks from Mr. Matsumoto. Like I said, a bummer. Had a feeling, deep down that this wasn't the case, but again, doesn't mean it's over, right? Didn't say no way in heck, no way in hell, it's not happening. Didn't say that. And again, like I said, money talks. So you never know. And as long as you have a champion in the company, as long as you have someone that believes in the cause and believes in the titles, then there's always a chance for this stuff to come back. And for the record too, I just want any of these old school fighting games to come back, right? I would love it to be Darkstalker, but I would really be happy if Rival Schools came back, or Power Stone, or Star Gladiator. I just want something to come back. I want another fighting game from Capcom that isn't just Street Fighter, right? That's what I really want. So it's fingers crossed, hoping it happens. But I mean, we'll see. Again, money talks. Gaming is so expensive. These companies can't really take risks anymore. They have to kind of stick to what, will work for sure. So I definitely understand why they're a little cautious and hesitant to do something different. But still, you can only hope. And like I said before, it still is a bummer. going by those remarks. But I'm still gonna purchase the game. Well, my brother's already purchased it pretty much with the pre-order. I'm still gonna purchase multiple copies. I'm getting it for every system. Getting it for PS4, getting it for Xbox, getting it for Switch, I believe. So, I want to support. Like I said, Capcom is my favorite company, and I definitely want to support. And even if they're saying that this doesn't necessarily dictate or mean, you know, it's not a measure for these games come back. I still want this to do well because I want to show my appreciation and so to show that hey, I love these games. I love the company. These are games that I grew up with, and I want to see more of these games, even though I've already bought them 10 million times. In fact, I was looking through my Darkstalkers collection. I have Darkstalkers 1 on PS1. I have Darkstalkers 2 or Night Wars, Night Revenge, whatever it's called, on Sega Saturn. I've got Vampire Savior on PS1. I have Vampire Savior as well, or Vampire Hunter, whatever, on Sega Dreamcast, which is the Japanese import. I also have it on Sega Saturn as well. I then have Vampire Darkstalkers Chronicle, the collection that was on PS2. I then have Vampire Chronicles or Darkstalker Chronicles that was on the PSP. And I have Darkstalkers Resurrection that came on PS3, PSN Store, and Xbox. And now I'm gonna get this. So yes, I have every version of Darkstalkers that came out. I have purchased it. So I've definitely done my part, and I definitely get the anger and sentiment, and the angry sentiment for some people, right? That have like myself bought these games over and over and over and over again, right? I definitely get why they're upset because they keep buying these games and it produces nothing, right? Me, I love them so much. That's why I want to preserve this stuff. But I definitely get the anger. And look, I think Capcom in this case has to just bite the bullet, right? If the measure of a Darkstalker game, or the hunger and success of one, you gotta do a new one, right? You have to do a new one. If you keep releasing old games, that's not a proper way to measure interest in Darkstalkers, right? I guarantee you a new Darkstalkers game would sell way more than them just doing a Darkstalkers collection, right? You just gotta dive in and do a new one. And I think in this climate, to be honest, I think it would do well. Years ago, I would say no. I would be like, I don't think so. Especially when fighting games were kind of teetering. I definitely know. But now I think so. Especially if it looks beautiful, looks sick, whether it be beautiful 2D sprited animation, which I would prefer, or just nice, cool, dark 3D aesthetics. Whatever it was, I think if it looks beautiful, people will play. Because again, people like monsters, people like gore, people like violence, people like darkness, right? They like interesting, cool. So I definitely think it would do well. So you know, come on, Capcom, just do it. Just do it. Don't be afraid. But that's it. That's my remarks. Just wanted to go ahead and talk about that. Um, and like I said, kind of rained on the parade a little bit. Won't lie about that. But again, I love these titles, and I'll be playing these games regardless, right? So let me know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments. Are you upset? Or are you sad? Or do you feel like, oh man, you've been tricked, bamboozled, hoodwinked? Are you now not gonna purchase this, like I've heard some people say? Or are you still gonna go ahead and get it, like I say, because hey, I love these games, or B, I never played these games and want to give them a shot? Let me know in the comment section below. And with that being said, as I always say, I want you guys to please take care and have a wonderful rest of your day.